Donald Trump issued a shocking warning to NATO leaders. So as some of you guys know, there's a war in Ukraine. And some NATO nations have not been paying the 2% of their GDP that NATO requires them to pay. Now, Donald Trump, at his rally, admonished those nations for not paying and said that he would not only not help them if they were attacked by Russia, but would encourage Russia to attack them. I don't think I have to explain why that's retarded, but apparently I have to. So we're going to watch the video and then respond to it.
So, Nikki may have started her career in South Carolina, but she's now 100% the candidate of Wall Street and the war machine. She wants to go to war with everybody. She wants to kill people. Countries that don't want us there. Countries that don't want us there. We're all over the place. We took a lot of it out. They don't want us there. It costs us billions and billions and trillions of dollars. And I just put a truth out. Is everybody, I hope, on truth? It's the greatest. David, you're on truth? I just put it out. They want to give like almost $100 billion to a few countries. $100 billion. And I said, and I'm telling you this is breaking news. We have breaking news.
Here's my problem with Trump's framing of this. Trump says Nikki Haley wants to kill people. I don't know if Trump realizes that when you work for the federal government at a leadership level, of foreign ambassador to the UN or the president of the United States, when you occupy a position of foreign policy expertise and experience in the US government, a lot of the decisions you're going to make are going to involve killing people. If Donald Trump doesn't have the stomach to lead our nation into war if necessary, or get our nation's hands dirty if necessary, I don't know what to say. Now, we know Donald Trump isn't scared to do that, because he's handled business before, but for some reason now he's pussy. I don't know what's going on. This whole narrative of, Nikki Haley wants war, she wants to kill people. Nikki Haley doesn't want war. Nobody wants war, but you know who does want war? Vladimir Putin. Trump has been running mad defense for Vladimir Putin. It's funny to me that Vladimir Putin can start a war, ruin and end the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, and somehow or another, Joe Biden, Nikki Haley, and the rest of the Uniparty are wrong for wanting to help defend Ukraine. They're wrong for wanting to help Ukraine defend themselves from being invaded and taken over. But Putin is okay for invading Ukraine. Putin doesn't want to kill people. Oh no, Putin, he doesn't want to kill anybody. He doesn't want to end any lives. He doesn't want to harm anybody. It's all from the heart. He's just a good, empathetic, loving man. But people like Biden, people like Nikki Haley, oh, they just want blood. They want war. They want destruction. The reality of the situation is that if Vladimir Putin wants the bloodshed to stop, he can always pack his bags and go back home. But he doesn't want to. He wants it all to end on his terms. The problem is Vladimir Putin has caused prices to skyrocket. It's funny to me when people sit there and act like Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine does not negatively affect the United States or our allies. Let's read for a second. So according to the National Institute of Health, an official website of the United States government, the National Library of Medicine says this: the Ukraine war and rising commodity prices, implications for developing countries. So if we look here, we can see a significant increase, a percentage change. For those of you morons who sit there and say dumb shit, like, how does the war in Ukraine affect us? Hello, wake up. These wars don't exist in some globe, in some small crystal ball cut off from the rest of us. We are affected. We will always remain affected by what goes on in the world because we're human. The United States is a nation of humans, not gods. Whatever goes on in the world affects us. You think it's a coincidence that we have our hands involved in so many different conflicts all around the world? Do you think it's a coincidence that we contain conflicts all around the world? This is done for a purpose, for a reason. To make sure that we receive the resources we need. To make sure that we have the prosperity that we enjoy. War disrupts these things, especially war between nations like Ukraine and Russia. But no, let's keep going. By all means, let's keep going. Let's keep talking. We have even more data. So the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war on crude oil prices and EMC framework. So, the abstract. As the second largest oil producer and natural gas exporter, Russia's war with Ukraine has severely impacted the energy market. To what extent has the war influenced crude oil prices? And has it altered the long-term dynamics of oil prices? An objective analysis of the effects of the Russia-Ukraine war on the crude oil market can assist relevant entities in developing both short-term emergency strategies and long-term response plans. So, let's look at the actual increases. Let's see what actually happened, right? So, from October 1st of 2021 to August 25th of 2022 as the event window, we found that the war and its chain events caused the West Texas Intermediate crude oil prices to increase by $37.14, a 52.33% surge, and the Brent crude oil price to rise by $41.49, a 56.33% increase. During the event window, the Russia-Ukraine war can account for 70.72% and 73.62% of the fluctuation in WTI and Brent crude oil prices, respectively. Furthermore, the war amplified oil price volatility and fundamentally altered the trend of crude oil prices. Consequently, this study proposes 4 recommendations: the establishment of an emergency management mechanism for the oil market, the diversification of oil and gas imports by energy importing countries, the steady advancement of energy transformation, and the judicious use of financial instruments by enterprises to hedge risks. So, for those of you that actually believe this war doesn't affect us economically, it does. It does, and allowing it to run on and on and on only hurts our pockets as Americans. It only hurts our pockets. And for those of you that would argue, oh, well, getting involved in this war would cause World War III, you do realize in World War II, we tried your method. We tried appeasing Hitler. We tried giving him more and more and more and more. Do you know what we got in exchange? We got World War II. We got World War II. We tried to appease Vladimir Putin. Freudian slip. We tried to appease Hitler. We made concessions to Hitler. We tried to give him what he wanted, and he wanted more and more and more. And we ended up having to fight that man to the death. Him, his army, his entire nation to the death. We had a war, a world war. Is that what y'all want again? You think that we engage in mitigation tactics? You think we contain conflicts for no reason? Do you actually believe, conservative Republicans, I'm asking you this, do you actually believe the United States is containing the Ukrainian conflict for no reason? You think Joe Biden gets shits and giggles out of containing this conflict? Russia's war in Ukraine negatively impacts the world economically. Russia's war in Ukraine destabilizes Europe. Russia's war in Ukraine is detrimental to the prosperity of Europe and the world. We stand to gain nothing from allowing Russia to run rampant all across Europe. Joe Biden does not want a war on his presidential term. What president wants a war of this magnitude marring his presidential term? Why would he want that? But the reality is this: we've already tried to placate people before in history. We placated Hitler. We tried to give him more and more and more land, and it didn't work. We didn't get what we wanted. We thought that by giving Hitler more and more and allowing him to take land and making concessions to him, we thought that he would stop. But instead, he didn't stop. And we know that Vladimir Putin is the same because Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine in 2014. He took Crimea. Now he's back again for more. Now he wants the entire nation. He will annex all of Ukraine. Concessions with Vladimir Putin does not work. But of course, for some reason or another, we're supposed to just throw the baby out with the bathwater. And why is that?
I just put it out. They want to give like almost $100 billion to a few countries. $100 billion. And I said, and I'm telling you this is breaking news. We have breaking news. I said, why do we do this? If you do, you give them not $100 billion. You give it to them as a loan. It's called a loan. Give them the money. And if they can pay it back, they pay it back. If they can't pay it back, they don't have to pay it back because, you know, they've got some problems. But if they go to another nation, they drop us like a dog, like a female drops a male after a date because he doesn't like her, right?
I ain't gonna lie, Trump is losing it. Trump is starting to lose it. But here's what's funny. He sits there and says, we give them all this money, but then they drop us like a dog. You do realize that giving them the money is what ties them to us economically. Like, you do realize that. Like, you do realize that we send them aid and it keeps our dollar fluctuating throughout the global economy. You do realize that, like, the US dollar is greatly, like, we greatly benefit as a nation by our currency circulating throughout the global economy. If they turn to another nation, it's not going to be because we sent them money. It's going to be because we stopped. When you stop sending these nations money, they're going to turn to someone else to fund them. They're going to turn to someone else to bankroll. They're going to turn to someone else to help them. And those nations will be Russia, China, Iran. Is that what y'all want? Do you want these nations to end up being buddy-buddy with our enemies? This is the game we have to play geopolitically. And I will tell conservative Republicans this. If y'all don't like the geopolitical game, if you don't like geopolitics, stick to domestic policy. Stick to arguing about culture war and abortion and all that bullshit. Don't come and fuck up what we got going on as a nation, as it pertains to our foreign policy. Don't fuck that up for the rest of us. Please go back to crying about Dylan Mulvaney. Go back to crying about trans shit. Don't come over here and fuck up what we got going on, please. Don't fuck this up, because we're on a roll. We're doing pretty good. We've contained Russia and Ukraine. We've contained the Houthis. We're doing a really good job of whooping Hamas's ass. Frankly, in terms of foreign policy, Joe Biden's decrepit ass is doing an amazing job. An amazing job. I have no complaints. This narrative of, oh, we give them money and then they turn away from us. They would turn away from us because we stopped giving them money. Like in the case of, for example, Israel. If we stopped supporting Israel tomorrow, I would imagine they'd probably turn to maybe China for help. Or, well, not Iran. Iran would never help Israel. But China, maybe even Russia. You never know. They'd probably ally up with one of our enemies for their own survival. I could see it happening. The reality is we gain economically and we gain geopolitically from having our dollar circulated throughout the economy. And by sending these nations aid, oftentimes in exchange, we get to put our military bases in their countries. We get to have access to these nations. We get to know what's going on the ground. We get to mitigate conflicts and contain them. There are benefits to the American global hegemony. We're not just throwing money for no reason, contrary to what people like Donald Trump would have you believe. What's also funny is that foreign aid doesn't even make up that much of our GDP. See, my problem with people like Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, all these fucking retards, is the fact that they try to make it seem to y'all, conservative Republicans, that America is spending so much money on Ukraine, so much money on foreign assistance. But the reality is, America's spending 1% of our GDP on foreign aid. 1% of our GDP on foreign aid. 1%. Opinion polls in 2019 show that Americans believed foreign assistance spending accounted for almost a quarter of the U.S. federal budget. In fact, assistance spending was less than 1% that year. So it's like, y'all are living in a fantasy land. You are living in a fantasy land. Truly. Here's the thing. Supporting economic growth in developing countries helps create stronger and more resilient markets for U.S. exports. So it creates nations that are much more capable of buying our shit. It helps make us richer. The more nations there are that have money, the more they can spend on our stuff. If we're sending them money, oftentimes they're buying our stuff. Like, for example, we send a lot of we send Ukraine shitloads of money. Ukraine is buying their weapons from us. They're buying their weapons from our contractors. A lot of NATO nations buy their weapons from our contractors. We make money off of a lot of these deals. It's not like America's going broke. Our companies, our private companies make money off of the geopolitical deals we make. Furthermore, foreign aid helps protect a lot of supply chains that we need, that we really, really need if we're importing goods from nations that are less fortunate, but we need those goods. By funding those nations, by sending them money, it secures the supply chains that we need. It helps make their exports more secure. It helps these nations export their goods to an international standard. It helps them export their goods to us, and we get to benefit from getting goods from them. Foreign aid is not useless, in spite of what populists like Vivek Ramaswamy, Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, Russell Brand, in spite of what they would all have you believe. We don't just send money to people for no fucking reason. The U.S. is not out here playing the U.S. is not out here playing Jesus. That's not what's happening here. Everything is an exchange. Everything is I give you, you give me. None of this is like a charity situation. All of this is for our benefit as a nation. Just Google it. Just spend some time researching and you'll realize that none of what we do in terms of foreign aid is for the benefit of others. It's for the benefit of us. Sometimes helping other people benefits us. That's just the way the world works. Interests overlap all the time, and it's so important for people to realize this.
That happens to our country, then very simply, we call the loan and we say we want our money, because we give money and then they go to another side. As an example, let's say we give all this money. We were already into Ukraine for over $200 billion. And they could make a deal with Russia in the next 3 weeks, and all of a sudden they don't want to deal with us anymore. We've given hundreds of billions of dollars. And why are we at over $200 billion? And the European nations are, if you add them up, it's a very similar sized economy. They're at $25 billion. So we're at 200 plus, and it affects them much more. We have a thing called an ocean between us, right? It affects them much more. But we're at 200. They're at 250. I did the same thing with NATO. I got them to pay up. NATO was busted.
I'm glad that we pay more. I'm glad we pay more, because frankly, I don't trust the European nations to handle this Ukraine shit properly. They were caught off guard. They weren't ready. And Trump is right about one thing. NATO wasn't ready. And he was right to pressure them on that. He was wrong to pressure them publicly, because you never show weakness. You never, ever, ever, ever show weakness. You never get on stage in front of the entire world and tell all the NATO countries, if y'all don't do what I tell y'all to do, it's fuck y'all. No, you don't give your enemies the idea that there's trouble in paradise. You don't give your enemies the idea that them niggas, they fighting over there. They don't get along. We could probably break up their little alliance. You don't ever want the enemy to think that. Trump gave that to Vladimir Putin, to Xi, to all of them on a silver platter. But he was right about the fact that NATO wasn't ready. Now, I will say this much. One of the benefits of us spending the most amount of money is we get to call the shots. The reality is this. The war in Ukraine is not a problem we can ignore. That is a lie that people like Donald Trump and conservative political pundits sell y'all. But it's not real. Conflicts eventually catch up to you. World War II is a prime example. The reality is this. Vladimir Putin took Crimea and we thought he was done. Then he came to annex the entire country. Multiple times, the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, threatens to not only blow up the United States with nuclear weapons, but he threatens to invade Poland. He threatens to destabilize the security and peace of all of Europe over and over and over and over and over again. Russia wants blood. Russia wants war. We can't turn our head away from this. I don't want American people. I don't want Americans fighting in Europe in World War III. I don't want that. I don't want that at all. But how we stop that from happening is by disarming and defunding the Russian war effort. By making it impossible for them to invade other nations. And by doing that, how do we do that? How do we get that done? How do we stop Russia from being a threat? We aid the Ukrainians. We send them weapons, money, intel, food, supplies. This is all detrimental to the Russian military. That's why Vladimir Putin said in his interview with Tucker Carlson, if y'all want peace, just stop sending the Ukrainians money. It'll be over. He can't win if we're helping the Ukrainians. He can't win. He knows this. We know this. The reality is this. I'm glad that we spend the most amount of money in NATO because we get to call the shots. The United States is the most war-ready nation in all of NATO. We are the best nation in all of NATO as it pertains to warfare. I know that the Brits are in delusion land and think that they're on our level. You're not on our level. Love y'all, but you're not. We get to call the shots. We spend the most money, and I'm glad we get to call the shots because we have been the most instrumental in making sure Russia does not win. Now, to address Trump's point of, if Ukraine made a deal with Russia, you're the same nigga that sat there for months saying you would make a deal between the two countries. What the fuck are you talking about? You sat there for months saying, I know them both. I would make an amazing deal with both of them. I know Zelensky. You sat there for months saying you would make a deal between these two niggas. We saw you. You know we can see you, right? It blows my mind that he genuinely believes Ukraine would make a deal with Russia and run off. For what? What kind of deal? Why would Ukraine, after tens of thousands of their children were kidnapped, after their cities have been leveled and destroyed, their women raped, their children murdered, after everything that's happened, you want me to believe Zelensky would make a deal with Vladimir Putin? The same Vladimir Putin that tried to kill him at the beginning of the war. Make this make sense. There is no deal. Ukraine is not going to make a deal with Russia. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. They're never going to join together and be in cahoots with each other. After what just happened? No. For what? Why? It would never happen. He's creating fake hypotheticals that will never happen to justify fucking with NATO and pulling away from NATO. It's dumb. So let's just say we pull away from NATO. Then who are our allies? What allies do we have? Where are our buddies? When something goes on in Europe, how do we get to call the shots? You want to go to war with everybody? You want to go to war with England, Spain, Germany? You want to go to war with all of these nations? Make this make sense. Or would you rather maintain an alliance with these nations and be able to tell them what the fuck to do in the event of a conflict? I would much rather stay in NATO and get to tell them what to do than leave NATO, watch NATO possibly disband, and now we have a whole bunch of different countries all vying for different things, going to war with each other, causing chaos. If y'all don't want World War III, it's in our best interest to maintain NATO. Our predecessors created this organization for a reason. It's not for show. It's not a game. It's not a joke. It was on purpose. We put military bases all around the world on purpose so that when shit like this happened, we could contain it and stop it from becoming a global conflict. Please, please, I'm begging conservatives to listen to reason, bro. Do not let people like Trump deceive y'all and seduce y'all with delusions of isolationism. It will never happen. Isolationism is a fantasy. Let it go. It's not gonna happen. We have to be very much aware and involved in global conflicts. This is how we stop things from developing up to a world war. People are going to die. Some of our troops are going to die. A shitload of their troops and their civilians, people around the world, are going to die. But that is a price we have to pay to maintain some level of global peace. Giving all of that up because some NATO nations don't pay the full percentage of their GDP is disgusting. And like I just told y'all, NATO only demands that you pay 2% of your GDP. 2%. Do you know how much of America's GDP goes toward Ukraine? So it's really, really interesting to me. We're in between 0.25% and 0.75%. We're at less than 1%. Less than 1% of America's GDP goes toward Ukraine. So it blows my mind that Republican politicians have been able to dupe their voters into thinking that America is spending strip club money on Ukraine. They've tricked American voters, Republican conservative voters, into thinking that Joe Biden is sending so much money to Ukraine, we don't have enough left for the American people. Less than 1% of our GDP has gone toward Ukraine. You can't make this shit up, though. Do not be deceived by the word billions or trillions. Don't be deceived by that. We have sent less than 1% of our GDP toward Ukraine. I'm just telling y'all right now, like this fantasy of, oh, we're spending too much money on Ukraine. Show me the evidence, because the evidence shows we spent less than 1% of our GDP. So the idea that we don't have enough money left behind for the American people, that's cap. So now and then it begs the question, conservatives or Republicans, what do y'all want to spend money on? Because we have more than enough. We're spending barely any of our GDP on Ukraine. So what do you want to spend the rest of our money on? You don't want free healthcare. You don't want welfare. You don't want anything for the American, taking care of the American people publicly. So what do you want?
Until I came along, I said, everybody's going to pay. They said, well, if we don't pay, are you still going to protect us? I said, absolutely not. They couldn't believe the answer. And everybody, you never saw more money pour in to Secretary General Stoltenberg. Well, I don't know if he is anymore, but he was my biggest fan. He said, all these presidents came in, they'd make a speech, they'd leave, and that was it. And they all owed money, and they wouldn't pay it. I came in, I made a speech, and I said, you got to pay up. They asked me that question. One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills.
This is crazy. Now, this is the same mind, y'all, that prided himself on dodging paying taxes. Like, and look, I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, look, bro, like, if you could do it, I get it. You know, you're a rich nigga. You know, like, I get it. Herein lies the problem. You a nigga that's been dodging tax. Like, you've been dodging the IRS. Don't talk about paying bills. Number one. Number two, the fact that you would put the stability of the globe at risk because some NATO nations haven't paid their fair share. There are many NATO nations that have paid their fair share and would come to the defense of other NATO nations who haven't. Why? Because global stability, economic security, and prosperity of the world is more important than proving a petty point. We can point fingers and shit on people and mean people to death later. There's more than enough time to be mad at people, to make fun of people. There's more than enough time for that. When we're talking about the stability of the world, American global dominance, when these things are on the line, you don't throw that all aside for the sake of proving a point. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And the idea that he would encourage Russia to invade these nations because they haven't paid a certain percentage of their GDP toward their military budget. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You would encourage Russia to invade a nation because they haven't paid a certain percentage of their GDP toward their defense budget. Make this make sense. Make this make sense. This is not a game. This is not a joke. We're talking about global security. We're talking about people's lives. We're talking about the livelihood of Western nations. Why would you put all of that at risk to prove a point? There are many nations that do pay that percentage of their GDP toward their defense budget. Are you gonna endanger their stability because some nations didn't pay? This isn't a video game where you get to pick and choose who gets invaded and who doesn't. The moment you start giving leniency and leeway to Russia, oh, that nation didn't pay, invade them. You do realize they're going to invade nations that did pay as well. You do realize they're going to try to play a winner takes all strategy. They're not just going to sit there and be placated. That's not how this works. I desperately want Republicans and conservatives to stay away from foreign policy, please. I thought Democrats were bad with Israel and Palestine, but Lord have mercy, Trump is reminding me that y'all just aren't ready for this conversation. And I love conservatives, but like y'all are steeped in fantasy. Seriously, what the fuck is going on with y'all?
And the money came flowing in. And Henry would know this. If I said, yes, I will, you don't have to pay. Yes, I will. Most politicians have said to that, yes, we will protect you under any circumstance. Well, then they're never paying up. I said, no, you have to understand, you don't pay your bills, you get no protection. It's very simple. Hundreds of billions of dollars came into NATO, and that's why they have money today, because of what I did. And then I hear that they like Obama better. They should like Obama better. You know why? Because he didn't ask for anything. We were like the stupid country of the world, and we're not going to be the stupid country of the world any longer. We're not going to be. Got bad under this guy.
I'll give something to Trump. Trump is right. Trump is right on some level. Trump is right. These NATO nations were not only not paying a certain percentage of their GDP toward their defense budgets, but even worse, he used the word delinquent. It's even worse than that. They were buying energy from Russia. That's why we blew up Nord Stream pipeline, because these niggas, Germany was buying oil from Russia, basically funding their future plans for war. You can't make this shit up. Trump was right about that. I will not sit here and act like Trump isn't right when he's right. I'm not an asshole. I'm not a dickhead. I'm not a dickhead ass nigga. Like I'm not out to get Trump. I like the guy, frankly. He's fucking hilarious. I like Trump as a private citizen. As a president, Lord have mercy, no. But as a private citizen, he's the GOAT. I'm gonna keep it 100. I fuck with the nigga. But almost everything he said in this video is straight cap. And I've had to sit there and Google all of this shit. I know it's cap, but I had to really sit there and actually Google all of this shit and put it together so you, Trump supporters, know he full of shit. At the end of the day, bro, like, I encourage and implore Republican voters, when you hear your candidates and pundits tell y'all stuff, just Google it. Because I can guarantee you most of it is a fucking lie. You remember when Kyle Rittenhouse, they were all saying Kyle Rittenhouse is a murderer, he's a murderer, but just one Google search showed the video, and the video showed that he wasn't a murderer and that it was self-defense? I beg and implore you, conservative white America, your pundits and your politicians are telling you that Ukraine doesn't affect us. They're telling you that we're spending so much money on Ukraine, we're spending less than 1% of our GDP on Ukraine. Chump change. Nothing. Nada. Zilch. It's chump change in the grand scheme of things. And with chump change, we've been able to significantly weaken militarily and economically one of our biggest enemies to date. You couldn't ask for a better deal. Not one American troop has died in that Ukrainian conflict. Not one. And Russia has been economically and militarily defanged. Sounds like a great deal to me. So ultimately, like I said before, I would ask and implore you all, conservative Republican voters, just take a moment whenever you're free, whenever you have the time, just research. Just sit down and just Google. I'm not saying you should turn on Trump. I am saying that. I'm not saying you should no longer be Republican. I'm not saying you should no longer be conservative, but I am asking you to meet us in the middle. Meet us Democrats somewhere in the middle. I promise you this Ukraine shit is not what your pundits and politicians are telling you it is. It is not a problem that we can ignore. It is not getting in the way of us taking care of the American people or any lie that they've sold you. At any lie. This war has been economically impactful. This war, if we hadn't intervened and contained it, could have been globally impactful. It's really, really important for us to realize that although some of y'all don't like Joe Biden, you don't like liberals, you don't like Democrats, it's important for y'all to realize there is a reason why rhinos and Democrats have agreed on supporting Ukraine. It's not for fun. It's not for the lulz. It's not for the retweets. This shit is for real. This shit is serious. This is not culture war stuff. This is genuine brass tacks politics. And if your interest in politics stops at culture war, then I would implore you to dig deeper and dig further. Learn more. Read more. Don't hesitate. Don't feel uncomfortable. Don't feel scared. Get into the topic. And you'll realize why a lot of people in Washington agree on supporting Ukraine. The only people that disagree are MAGAites and moronic populists who think that the people know better about geopolitics than actual professionals. And I know for a lot of conservatives that's offensive to hear, because y'all have this new trend where the people. The reality is this: just like every other serious profession, the people that have been working on this stuff for decades and decades know better than we do. They do. It's not a coincidence that Joe Biden and so many other statesmen who have been working in Washington for decades, it's not a coincidence that they've all come together and agreed on these things. And no, it's not because of Lockheed Martin and Raytheon trying to make bands and strip club money. That's not what it is. That's not what it is. Do Lockheed Martin and Raytheon benefit from this war? Of course. Interests align all the time. It's in our best interest for Europe to not be caught up in a war. And how do we stop that? By containing Russia and fighting them off. Who makes money from fighting off Russia? Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. Sometimes interests just happen to align. If you're willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater because some companies that you don't like are making money off of war, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're a child. You're a little kid. You know who else makes money? Colt, Glock, companies that you love. Conservatives, like, y'all do realize the military-industrial complex does not stop at rockets and missiles. Like, bullets, guns, these things are also products of the military-industrial complex. I need conservatives to understand, bullets and bombs are also products of the military-industrial complex. Rifles, bullets, the stuff that y'all love, Heckler and Koch, Glock. Like, these companies that y'all love to death, they're also making money off of the war in Ukraine. So the military-industrial complex goes beyond rockets and planes, even down to the smallest of bullets being fired from a pistol. It's all military-industrial complex. So, with that being said, I've ranted my fucking heart out. Conservatives, I would implore y'all to fuck with a nigga. I would implore y'all to hear me out. Fuck with what I'm talking about. I got a cramp in my stomach. I'm fucked up right now. But fuck with what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to help us all win. I want America to win, but in order for us to win, we gotta all be on the same team. We can't have some of y'all over there sucking Vladimir Putin's cock. We can't have some of y'all over there glazing up, we can't have y'all doing all this fuck shit. Like, y'all gotta pick a side. Because I'm seeing y'all doing tricks on the dick right now and it's looking crazy, okay? So come back to Team America. You know what I'm saying? Take the pipe out your mouth. Come back over here. Let's work together on protecting American global interests. Fuck with us. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would encourage Republicans, like, fuck with us. Like, meet us in the middle. Let's talk. Let's chop it up. Let's figure something out for the benefit of America, because this whole, like, us versus them shit, it ain't working, bro. I'm honestly thankful that we have someone like Joe Biden in office who's willing to work with Republicans. I'm so thankful that we don't have people like Donald Trump who don't want to work with the other side. I'm so thankful that we don't have radical, far left, fucking insane tankies, communist socialists who don't want to work with conservatives to solve American issues. I'm glad that we still kind of have that old guard in office that's willing to work with the other side. I'm thankful. They may not be entertaining, they may not be funny, but they're doing what's best for this country. So that's my opinion. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. I know a lot of y'all are doing tricks on the Trump dick, and I guess I respect it. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm out.